This is Homecoming here on Up North News Radio, the Women Win Wisconsin segment, which was originally the brainchild of Sarah Godlewski. And then she got busy becoming Secretary of State and passed the reins on to Kristin Lyerly. And then she got busy with one of her many 17 jobs. She added another one to it, running for Congress. Now she is the guest on Women Win Wisconsin, powered by our friends at Motherhood for Good. So, Kristin, as happy as we are to see you, you're just going to have to sit over there in the corner, like all of our other guests, while I catch up with the hosts of this segment, Kate Duffy, Nicole Slavin. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
How are you?
You guys seem a little upbeat. I mean, anything happened recently? Like, was there a good presidential debate or something? Why are you looking so good?
Are you guys still riding high on that dopamine boost from that? That was like, I think that'll take me through at least next week.
Masterclass. Mm-hmm.
Masterclass is right. Absolutely. And I know that there were some folks that were like, well, could you remember how they said Hillary Clinton was overprepared? And I thought, well, yeah, she's done a lot of arguments in court, but court isn't exactly the same as a debate stage. Will she be okay? Yeah, she was okay.
Fine.
And I kept pointing, going, that's why, and again, Joe Biden, love him, everything, all thanks and praise to him. He was not my first choice going into 2020. It was Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren. I all thought were great candidates. I thought if Joe makes it through, that's great too. And I was looking at the TV going, that's the Kamala Harris I was talking about, but when you're vice president, that side of you doesn't get to come out as much for 4 years. So I'm glad we finally got to see, who some of us already knew Kamala Harris was.
Yeah, she not only is she just like so ready and so intelligent, she has this emotional intelligence that is amazing. So you see her not only talk about all the facts and the policies, but also just bring warmth and realness to the conversation. And I think, that's a big reason why people are so drawn to her and drawn to this campaign. So it was really cool to see.
And Nicole, from, now let's get away from the warm fuzzies, from being able to turn to Donald Trump and just kind of tell him what's what. I mean, again, that was something that was visceral, watching him do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we've sat for years and waited for somebody to do what she did effectively for, 2 hours. It gave me life. No, it was wonderful to be able to see somebody have, responses that actually pointed out how, completely out of this world and nonsensical his responses are to things, and to be able to kind of hold him accountable and say the things that we've all been thinking for many years.
I'm looking at a stopwatch here, and this now sets the record. This is the longest we've kept Kristin Lyerly's mic off in all the times that she's been on Up North News Radio.
I have something to say too.
You are such a good sport. First off, how are you?
I'm so good. And you know what, Pat? You can go. We've got this.
Yeah,
right,
I know that. You were the first one, remember, 2 years ago with legislative candidates that I said, I trust you. You do the interviews. I'm just going to shut my camera off. And so, yeah, I always know I could turn things over to you guys. So what do you think? What's going on?
Well, I mean, with regards to the debate, I loved how disciplined Kamala Harris was. She never took the bait. Trump did that crazy thing that made you go, I want to respond to that, like your gut wanted to respond to it. And she just stayed focused and said the things she needed to say. And, I agree with you, ladies and Pat. I thought that she was absolutely incredible. That is the kind of leader that I want to see. And that is the kind of leader that the people I'm talking to at the doors and on the phones and at events want to see as well.
All right. Now, before I turn things over to Nicole and Kate for the rest of the questioning, I'm going to get this in first because we still have you on Monday mornings at 6:30, because you have been for a couple of years here, and you are an absolute delight. And we talk just about whatever's in the news. We talk about, pop culture, whatever. We don't touch very deeply on your congressional campaign. This is your slot to do that. And because I always feel like I'm not giving you enough due for the campaign itself. So I just want you to tell us how the campaign is going and be quite open about, what are the stakes, especially in a district that, is not necessarily friendly to Democratic candidates.
It's so good. What we're hearing both in the district and really from across the country, the grassroots engagement has been overwhelming. People recognize that here in the swingiest district of the swingiest state, during the most consequential election of our lifetime, electing the first pro-choice OBGYN doctor to Congress is a game changer. That's me. So people get it, and we're loving all of the love that we're feeling.
I couldn't agree more. It's so exciting to see. And I think what really strikes me, and, I live in the district, obviously, out talking to my neighbors and community often, is it isn't about being Republican or Democrat. It's about someone who stands up for the issues that matter to you. It's about the things that impact your daily life. And it's just so clear that you are the right person for the job in that way. And something I wanted to ask you about, and I know we were at an event earlier this week and this had come up, but just the story of women's reproductive rights, obviously something you're very passionate about, but rather than just talking about abortion, talking about family planning and miscarriages, things of that nature of, this is a wide spectrum. It's not a one item issue. Could you talk a little bit about what you've heard? And I mean, I really feel like that's the issue that's going to get people to come out and vote for you the most.
I think it's that, and I think it's healthcare in general. Everybody, every single person I talk to wants the freedom to make their own personal healthcare decisions, whether we're talking about abortion or contraception, access to all forms of contraception. So you get to pick the one that works for you, because if you've used contraception, you know that sometimes things don't work for you for whatever reason, but also about preventive care. When do you choose to go in? What kind of options do you have to manage your blood pressure? If you're diagnosed with cancer, which is common, what are your options for treating your cancer? All of these things are things that we all want to be. We want to be in charge of those decisions. We don't want politicians telling us what we can and cannot have. So for me as a physician, whether it's in the exam room or out talking with people on the campaign trail, that's the number one thing. And people also recognize how having that freedom to make those decisions for yourself ties into everything else. It ties into all of the economic things. You hear that the economy is the number one issue for people. And, it is. It's the cost of food. It's the cost of gas. But if you don't have the freedom to make your own personal healthcare decisions and you're stuck doing something that you're not comfortable doing or something that doesn't work in your life, it has an economic impact on the way you live your life, and a social impact and a community impact. It's all tied together. And what we need are leaders who are helping to solve these problems and give us the freedom and the opportunity that we all need to be able to live our best lives.
I love that. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel like people are starting to get that a little bit more and get how complicated and nuanced and how big of an umbrella reproductive care is, and that it's not as black and white as I think you have said that politicians make it out to be. Are you getting the same sense that people are kind of learning more and understanding and leaning into the fact that it's actually a much wider scope of care?
I really do get that sense. And, just think back to how different things were in 2020. When I ran for assembly in 2020 as an OBGYN doctor, I did not talk about abortion. I did not talk about birth control. We stayed far away from reproductive rights, especially here in Northeast Wisconsin, because we were afraid. This is a district known to be deeply Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and those are issues that are really hard to talk about. But what we've discovered over time, and we always knew that Catholics use abortion care and birth control at the same rate as everybody else, we just talk about it differently. So now that we're starting to have these conversations and we're talking about our own experiences with miscarriage, up to 50% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. This is not rare. Or abortion. 1 in 4 women in this country will have an abortion. This is not rare. 99% of sexually active people will use birth control at some point in their lives. This is not rare. So as we are making that space and having these conversations that we weren't having before, we are gaining a better understanding of how this is not a black and white issue. It is, as you said, Kate, deeply nuanced, and that requires us to have the ability to make our own healthcare decisions.
I've got one comment that's come in that I wanted to share through Facebook, and it's Brian saying the only bad thing about Kamala Harris's performance in the debate is that Trump's obvious ignorance on women's issues seems to have frightened Tony Weed out of debating, Kristin. There seems to be a debate about debates, much like in the presidential race right now.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a debate. So we challenged my opponent to a debate a couple weeks ago, and the deadline was Monday. So we then issued a press release saying that we're just going to go ahead and do a candidate for him. Well, they came in at the last minute and said, wait a minute. So now we're trying to put the pieces together so that there will be a debate, because we really want the people of Northeast Wisconsin to know who their candidates are and what they stand for. So my fingers are crossed. I really look forward to the potential for a debate here.
Sounds good. Nicole?
Yeah, I think getting clarity on your opponent's views on a lot of these issues would be very, very helpful. Straight out of his own mouth, I think would be extremely helpful. Building off of the previous conversation we were having, I'm just wondering, I think childcare fits in as like a next step very, very closely when you're talking about reproductive health care. And I know a lot of the moms that follow Motherhood for Good, and just moms that I know, that is an area of concern. Finding good quality childcare, access to childcare, being able to afford childcare is huge. Curious what you've heard as you've been out speaking with people, and what your thoughts are on how we could make that maybe a little better.
My kids are older now, but I have 4, and they were my kids when I was in medical school and residency. So childcare has been a huge issue for me personally. And in fact, many of my student loans that I'm still paying off are related to childcare expenses. We tried everything. We had au pairs, we had nannies, they went to centers, we did in-home. I mean, we did everything. And that made it possible for me to become a doctor. And that is what makes it possible for women to get an education, to participate in the workforce, to do the things that they need to do in their lives and for their families and for their communities. This should be a priority for our society, but clearly it's not. And when you see what's happening here in Wisconsin, when you see how hard it is for childcare providers to run their small businesses, and how hard it is for families to access and afford that childcare, it doesn't make any sense that we don't value this as a society. So this is a priority for me, both personally and as a leader.
Right. And it ties back into what Kamala was talking about with the opportunity economy, because things like that and giving mothers and women the opportunity to have care that's affordable and go back to work raises the economy in other aspects. One more quick question I have to ask you about from the debate. So Donald Trump again brought up late-term abortions. We were very happy to see him fact-checked in real time by the moderator. I posted a video yesterday about Jessica Valenti talking about what he's referring to is palliative care for infants, born who are incompatible with life. Is there anything that you can add to that conversation that helps people understand that that's not a real thing?
Can we do a whole other episode on that?
I know.
It makes me so crazy when I hear that Donald Trump or that Democrats want abortion all the way up until the time of birth and sometimes after. That is a lie. That is a lie. When people have abortions late in pregnancy, it's because there's something going on with the pregnancy that is incredibly painful. These are desired pregnancies, and often these are babies that are born that won't survive. So the best option, the least painful option for them and for their families, is to wrap them up and offer that palliative care so their parents can hold them and care for them and just be with them for their entire short life. If you've been through this, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's really hard to understand and imagine. But these are the stories that they tear people apart. They tear apart families because they're so hard. So we need to talk more about this, because I hate the way they message it. It's so unfair.
It's it's so intentionally wrong. And you understand why it's so important that we keep a focus on this race and on talking about the issues honestly. Kristin, as always, great to see you. Thanks for giving us the update on the campaign. Kate, Nicole, always wonderful to see you guys. Have a great start to the weekend.
Thanks, moms.